The screen is pitch black, silence, then a distant echo of sirens, a thud, a gasp, the sharp click of handcuffs slicing through the darkness. Somewhere, deep in the shadows, a Bugatti engine growls to life. Flash. The lights of Dubai blind the screen. Neon blues, flickering reds. A camera swings upward to catch a silhouette standing atop a glass tower, arms wide, coat billowing like a villain in a comic book. His name isn't spoken, yet every viewer already knows it. Andrew Tate. A single second holds more contradiction than most lives. A man celebrated like a god, vilified like a criminal. In one tab, he's shouting motivational quotes into a mic. In another, he's being dragged through a Romanian courtroom. But how did he get here? You see, most people think power is luck. That it's about being born rich, connected, handsome, educated. But those people haven't read the 48 laws of power. They don't understand the ancient game being played in the modern world. Tate did. He didn't stumble into success. He constructed it, brick by brutal brick. Each law was a move. Each move, a consequence. Whether you admire him or despise him, you are watching a masterclass unfold in real time. Let's rewind the tape. Back to a cold gym in Luton. No cameras, no Bugatti. Just a young man shadowboxing in silence. His father, Andrew Tate, a chess grandmaster, once told him, "If you lose your queen too early, you've already lost." That stuck. The boy learned early. Power isn't given, it's taken. Quietly, strategically. Just like in chess. That was Law 1, never outshine the master. And so he stayed quiet, until he didn't. In school, he wasn't the loudest, but he observed. He saw that charisma could open more doors than grades ever could. He watched how teachers gravitated toward confidence, even when it was hollow. He watched how girls followed bad boys, not bookworms. Law 6, court attention at all costs. When he entered the kickboxing world, he realized something else. Fighting wasn't just about fists. It was theater. When he walked into a ring, he didn't walk. He arrived, head held high, eyes locked, chest out. He wasn't just fighting for a belt, he was crafting an image. Law 34, be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. And when he started posting online, he wasn't just speaking, he was commanding. People didn't just watch, they reacted. That was the point. But not all reactions were praise. In fact, most were outrage. Clips were taken out of context, others weren't. The media circled like sharks. But here's the secret, he wanted them to. Because Tate had studied Law 3, conceal your intentions. Every rant, every viral hot take, every alpha male quote, it wasn't just content, it was chess. He wasn't showing power, he was gathering it. When TikTok banned him, when Instagram deleted his accounts, when the news ran exposed headlines day after day, something weird happened. He grew bigger. Millions of young men began sharing his clips in secret. His fans became soldiers, his message multiplied. That's Law 23. Concentrate your forces. He focused his message on one group, young men disillusioned by the modern world, and gave them a cause, a language, and a leader. Then came the arrest, cameras flashing, headlines screaming. Andrew Tate caught. Tate brothers behind bars. The internet buzzed with dopamine. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone clicked. But Tate, if you paid attention, didn't flinch. He had already absorbed Law 48, assumed formlessness. He was no longer just a man. He had become a brand, a ghost in the algorithm. His name trended more after being silenced than it ever did while speaking. You begin to understand something disturbing, yet powerful. This wasn't an accident. This was a campaign. Calculated, layered, reversible. Every move mirrored the ancient strategies of kings, warlords, and emperors, from Julius Caesar to Napoleon, from Machiavelli to Elon Musk. From ancient scrolls to TikTok scrolls, power never changed. Just the format did. And now here you are, watching, hooked. Because whether you agree with him or not, you can't look away. That's Law 27. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. Some believe he's a savior, others a monster. But either way, he's a mirror. A reflection of what happens when strategy meets scale. Suddenly you realize you've already entered the game. You're not a spectator. You're a pawn, a rook, maybe even a knight. But are you aware of the board? Or just reacting to every viral move? Because here's the truth, no one wants to say out loud. The modern world rewards manipulation. Not honesty, not kindness, not talent, but perception. And if you don't control your own story, someone else will write it for you. So ask yourself, when was the last time you took a bold step? When was the last time you were unapologetically strategic? When was the last time you studied the laws of power and actually used them? Tate did, and that's how he rose. Whether his fall is temporary or final, that's another story. But for now, the lights flicker back on. The screen flashes white. A red Bugatti rips through the highway. Tate stares into the rearview mirror. And you see it clearly now. He didn't get lucky. He just followed the rules. A 48 laws of power journey through poverty, identity, and hustle. Gray clouds hung low over Luton, England. The town, a place where dreams didn't exactly come to grow, smelled faintly of engine oil, burnt toast, and broken promises. It was the kind of place where ambition either died quietly or screamed loud enough to break out. Andrew Tate was just a kid then, half black, half white, tall but skinny, loud but invisible. His school uniform never quite fit right. His shoes were usually second-hand, and he could count the number of decent meals he ate in a week without running out of fingers. Life wasn't handing out participation trophies. It was handing out lessons, hard ones. His father, Andrew Tate, was a genius, a chess grandmaster. But genius doesn't always pay the bills. Emery's brilliance came with a wild edge. He was brilliant on the board, unpredictable in life. The kind of man who could lecture you about African military history, then vanish for 3 days chasing tournaments, debates, or freedom. There was no stability, only a storm of intelligence and chaos. But young Andrew watched, quietly, carefully. He noticed something peculiar. His father, as brilliant as he was, never bowed to anyone. Even when they were broke. Even when the heater broke down again. Even when the fridge was emptier than a bank account after Christmas. Emery moved like a king, even when he was losing. That was Law 34. Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. And yet, despite the pride, Andrew felt small. In school, he wasn't the golden boy. He wasn't chosen for class captain. He didn't fit in. Some days he was too black. Other days not black enough. Sometimes he was laughed at for his American accent. Other times for not being tough enough. Every hallway felt like a battlefield. But no one taught him the rules. So he did what most smart kids in pain do. He watched. There was one teacher in particular, Mr. Hampton. Loved by the school, charismatic, well-dressed. The kind of man who could make a math lesson feel like a TED Talk. But Andrew saw through it. Hampton had favorites. Kids whose parents donated to the PTA. Kids who knew how to flatter. Andrew wasn't one of them. No matter how many correct answers he gave, Hampton barely acknowledged him. That was Law 1. Never outshine the master. Tate learned that lesson the hard way. He once corrected Hampton in class. A small math error, nothing major. The room laughed. The teacher didn't. That day, Andrew got detention for disruption. He wasn't being celebrated for his intelligence. He was being punished for challenging the pecking order. So he stopped raising his hand. He stopped trying to be seen. But inside, something snapped. He promised himself that he would never be invisible again. And so began the grind. After school, while other kids were out playing FIFA or getting into trouble, Andrew was training. Not in some fancy MMA gym with fluorescent lights and Instagram filters. No, he trained in a concrete garage, no heating, rusty equipment, gloves that smelled like decade-old sweat. He didn't complain. He hit the bag until his knuckles bled, jumped rope until his lungs felt like they'd collapse, shadow-boxed with ghosts of his future enemies. That was Law 10, infection, avoid the unhappy and unlucky. If he stayed around losers, he'd become one. So he trained alone. To make money, he mopped gym floors, scrubbed toilets, did push-ups between janitor shifts. He kept a notebook in his backpack, not filled with class notes, but with ideas. Business names, quotes, dream cars. People laughed at him. Broke boy with a notebook, they said. He didn't care. There was a night he'd never forget. It was winter. The boiler had broken again. His mom wrapped herself in 3 blankets and told the kids to sleep in socks and hats. Tate couldn't sleep. He sat on the floor, his breath visible in the air, clutching his little notepad. He wrote in shaky hands, "I will be rich, I will be powerful, I will be respected." Then he underlined it. No plan B. The next morning, he Googled how to make money online. What followed was both tragic and hilarious. His first idea? Sell protein powder. From scratch, not dropshipping, not affiliate links. No, Tate tried to manufacture his own powder. bought cheap ingredients from sketchy websites, mixed them with cocoa powder in his mom's kitchen, and put them in hand-labeled bags. He even tried designing his own logo on Microsoft Paint. The name? Alpha Fuel. Yeah, that didn't go well. He managed to sell 3 bags, one to his cousin, one to a kid in his gym, one to a random dude from Twitter. The third guy messaged him 2 weeks later, "Bro, did this give me food poisoning?" Tate refunded him with an apology and a vow to never touch powder again. But failure wasn't defeat. It was research. It was fieldwork. He read voraciously, business books, biographies. And one day, by chance, a YouTube video recommended the 48 Laws of Power. He clicked. Everything changed. Every feeling he ever had about school politics, social dynamics, charisma, weakness, betrayal, it was all there. It felt like someone had written a manual for the world he was trying to survive in, a cheat code to the Matrix. He started applying the laws, in small ways. Law 3, conceal your intentions. He stopped telling friends his next move, just acted. Law 6, court attention at all costs. He started posting bold quotes on Facebook. He didn't care if it ruffled feathers. In fact, he hoped it did. Law 28, enter action with boldness. No more hesitating. If he had an idea, he acted. Instantly. Even if it flopped. By the time he hit 18, he was already different. Not famous, not rich, but dangerous. Not because of size, but because of certainty. Most young men were still trying to find themselves. Tate had already built himself. By 20, he was competing as a kickboxer, losing, learning, improving. He didn't win every match, but he won every lesson. Every opponent was a teacher. Every bruise, a diploma. Meanwhile, online, the gears were turning again. He started campsites. Digital Hustle 101. Girls, webcams, fans, payments. Morally gray? Maybe. But it worked. That was Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. Find what people desire and sell it back to them. Money began to flow. Slowly at first, then in waves. The Bugatti was still far off. The fame hadn't arrived. But for the first time, the heating worked. The fridge was full. And Andrew Tate, the broke boy with the notebook, was no longer invisible. But he didn't post a glow-up selfie. He didn't flex yet. He remembered Law 1, never outshine the master. And in his world, there were still bigger players. Boxing champions, billionaires, tech bros. He didn't want to shine yet. He wanted to study them. Because Tate wasn't aiming for fame. He was aiming for power. The mat smelled like blood, sweat, and fear. Sometimes his, often someone else's. But for Andrew Tate, it was more than a ring. It was a chessboard. And every opponent? Just another piece waiting to be moved, manipulated, and finally, defeated. He wasn't born with knockout power. He wasn't the fastest. But what he lacked in natural talent, he made up for with a weapon most fighters never even trained: his mind. By his early 20s, Tate had found himself in a new arena: kickboxing. Not the glamorized UFC stage or Vegas pay-per-views. This was raw, underground, cold locker rooms, rusty chains, faded posters peeling off brick walls. Prize money? Laughable. But for him, the real prize wasn't money. It was mastery. When he stepped into that first ring, he didn't just step into a fight. He stepped into a philosophy, an ancient truth. Dominate or be dominated. The rules weren't written in ink. They were carved in bruises, stitched in cuts, and whispered in the silence between punches. Before every match, he'd stand in the corner, fists clenched, eyes locked on his opponent, not with rage, but with analysis. Observing, reading body language like a poker hand. Nervous feet, shallow breathing, weak eye contact. That was Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. Everyone had a breaking point. Most just didn't know theirs until he found it. But Tate didn't train like most fighters. While others focused on pure aggression, Tate trained like a tactician. Early mornings, shadowboxing at sunrise, ice baths that made his skin scream, stretching routines that would make yoga instructors jealous. Every punch was practiced 1,000 times, not for brute force but for precision. Control, because in fighting, like in life, wild emotions get you killed. That was Law 29. Plan all the way to the end. Tate didn't throw punches. He executed moves he had already mentally rehearsed days before. Before a single glove touched another, the outcome was halfway written. He once fought a local champion in Romania. The guy was a beast. Taller, heavier, undefeated in his last 5 fights. The kind of guy who grunted like a bear and strutted around the gym like he owned it. The crowd cheered his name. Tate just stood still, quiet, calm. When the bell rang, most expected a brawl. Tate delivered a lesson, not in violence but in psychology. First round, defensive. Tate let him swing, made him miss over and over. Each miss chipped away at the man's confidence. Second round, counterstrikes, sharp, fast, not full power, just enough to sting. By the third round, the opponent was frustrated, tired, sloppy, and that's when Tate entered action with boldness. Law 28. He charged not recklessly, but with calculated aggression. Every move screamed certainty, and it wasn't just the punches that landed, it was the message behind them. You've already lost. The fight didn't go the distance. It ended with a flurry of blows, a clean kick to the ribs, and a silence so thick it drowned the crowd. Tate didn't raise his arms in victory. He just walked away, like a man finishing a meeting. But here's the twist. Tate wasn't chasing belts. He didn't fight for fame or fanfare. Every win was a message to himself, a reminder that he could become whoever he chose to be. Not by accident, not by birthright, but by force of will. That mindset, that control, bled into every part of his life. He began to treat life itself like a fight. Wake up before the enemy. Train when they rest, study when they party, execute when they hesitate. That was Law 23. Concentrate your forces. Don't chase 10 dreams. Master one, then expand, and with that focus he earned his first title, then another. 4 world championships later, Tate had done what most only dream of, and yet, he didn't become a household name. Why? Because he hadn't activated Law 6, court attention at all costs, not yet. But he had laid the foundation. Kickboxing wasn't just a sport for Tate, it was his monastery, his boot camp, his battlefield. It taught him that power starts with the body. Think about it. If you can't control your own body, your sleep, your appetite, your habits, how could you ever control anything else? A business, a brand, a nation? Law 20. Do not commit to anyone. In the ring, that meant don't commit to one strategy. In life, it meant don't tie yourself down emotionally to things that don't serve your empire. He refused to be trapped by expectations. Whether it was family pressure, society's rules, or moral guilt, he kept himself free to move, to adapt, to win. There was one night, post-victory, when Tate walked into a cheap hotel in Moldova. Broken elevator, flickering lights, his belt in one hand, a bruised rib under his hoodie. The receptionist barely looked up. No press, no parade, just another day. He looked into the mirror in his tiny room, sweat still dripping, and asked himself, is this it? That was the moment everything shifted. He'd proven he could dominate physically, but now he wanted more. Not just wins, influence, not just opponents, followers, not just respect. Obsession. That required a new kind of power. Social power. So he started planning. Not how to fight harder, but how to scale his mindset. How to package his discipline, his rules, his beliefs into something the world couldn't ignore. That meant mastering content. That meant embracing controversy. That meant becoming a character. Because as he had learned through every punch, every bruise, every win, in this world, people don't follow strength alone. They follow certainty, confidence, polarization. The man who walks into the room and owns it without saying a word. Tate had trained his body. Now it was time to weaponize his image. But that comes later. For now, back in that dusty gym, surrounded by fighters chasing clout and broken dreams, Andrew Tate sat quietly, championship belt resting by his side. He wasn't smiling. Because he knew something they didn't. He hadn't even started. It was 2016. Neon lights, reality TV buzz, and the echo chamber of the internet were colliding into a storm of instant fame and instant shame. Andrew Tate walked into the Big Brother house like a lion in a cage, except he already knew the rules of the jungle extended beyond the walls. And unlike most contestants, he wasn't there just to survive. He was there to study the system. He watched the others, their performative laughter, their craving for the camera, their fake friendships built for screen time. He saw weakness, thirst for validation, the exact kind of thirst that made people predictable. Law 33. Discover each man's thumbscrew. But Tate wasn't predictable, and that made him dangerous. He wasn't loud at first. He didn't need to be. He observed, calculated. The producers, the housemates, the audience, everyone was a player in a bigger game he was starting to see clearly. It wasn't about being loved. It was about being talked about. Enter Law 6. Court attention at all costs. Because in a world where silence means death and attention means power, the only sin is being forgettable. He didn't wait to be handed a storyline. He became one. One moment it was provocative conversation, the next it was dominance in physical tasks. Then sharp, unfiltered opinions on gender roles, power, and society. People weren't just watching, they were reacting. Some cheered, others fumed, but none ignored. That was the strategy. Then came the scandal. An old video resurfaced, edited, stripped of context, spun into a narrative that fit the outrage of the hour. Headlines screamed, Twitter exploded, journalists feasted, and just like that, the Big Brother producers ejected him from the house. Most people would panic. Issue an apology, go dark, let the storm pass, not Tate. He did the opposite, he harnessed it, because to him, cancellation wasn't death, it was birth. Law 5, so much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. But if they try to kill your reputation, rebuild it with fire. He wasn't naive. He knew the world had changed. This wasn't the 1990s, where reputations were crafted over decades. This was the era of digital warfare, where one viral moment could erase everything or make you immortal. So he leaned in, he doubled down, he took the clips, the headlines, the hate, and spun them into marketing, censored by the system. They fear the truth. They tried to delete me. Each phrase wasn't just defiance, it was positioning. Law 37, create compelling spectacles. The cancellation wasn't a setback. It became the spectacle. And people couldn't look away. He launched videos explaining his side, not with remorse, but with confidence, authority, swagger. He didn't retreat into silence, he created more noise. And something strange happened. Instead of vanishing, he multiplied. His name spread faster than ever. Not because he was right or wrong, but because he was controversial. People reposted him to mock him. Others reposted to support him. Either way, his message was everywhere. It was algorithmic warfare. On YouTube, he broke through filters. On Twitter, he triggered rage and retweets. On TikTok, fan edits, debates, and memes pushed his content through millions of feeds. Law 26, keep your hands clean. Tate didn't need to post most of the clips himself. His followers and haters did it for him. Controversy became the currency, and he understood it better than most. He studied media cycles. He observed how the internet punishes the silent and rewards the defiant. So he crafted a new persona, Top G, a digital gladiator, rich, ruthless, unfiltered, unapologetic. The man society tried to cancel became the man millions wanted to follow. But here's the hidden genius. Tate didn't just court attention. He controlled the frame. Law 31, control the options, get others to play with the cards you deal. He made every interaction about his game. Debates weren't about truth, they were about dominance. Detractors weren't obstacles, they were amplifiers. And with every podcast, post, and provocation, he rebranded infamy into influence. There was a moment, an interview, streamed on a low-key podcast where the host asked, "Do you ever regret what happened on Big Brother?" Tate just smiled. "If they didn't kick me off, I wouldn't be famous," he said. That wasn't arrogance, it was strategy. What most saw as scandal, he saw as leverage. And that's the core of Law 3, conceal your intentions. While the world thought he was chasing clout, he was building an empire. A digital army. A network. A brand. Even his most loyal followers often didn't realize they weren't just watching a man rebel against society. They were participating in a story he wrote himself. Villain, hero, outsider, prophet, whatever role fit the moment, he played it. Because in the end, what matters isn't whether people love you or hate you. It's whether they can't stop thinking about you. Law 27. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. And that's exactly what happened. Tate began offering courses, mentorship, programs. People paid not just for content, but for identity, for access, to feel like part of the rebellion. He wasn't just an influencer, he was an idea. And ideas can't be canceled. One of his favorite lines became a meme. They deleted me, so I became uncancelable. It sounds like bravado, but really, it's a blueprint. In a world ruled by trends and triggered mobs, the key isn't to hide from controversy. The key is to orchestrate it. Make the outrage work for you. Frame yourself as the underdog. Control the narrative. Stay calm while others panic. Offer your tribe a shared enemy and a reason to rally. That's Law 27. Law 6, Law 31, all rolled into one digital hurricane. It didn't matter that half the world hated him. What mattered was that they clicked. And those clicks turned into cash, followers, headlines. That's the paradox of power in the modern age. The more they tried to silence him, the more loud he became. He turned cancellation into catapult. He mastered the rules by breaking them. He didn't ask for attention. He demanded it. Because as he'd learned, on the mat, in the media and in the mess of public perception, in a world of noise, the man who owns the spotlight owns the world. After the storm of Big Brother and the fire of online controversy, most expected Andrew Tate to cool off, fade into the background, live off his past fame like a retired fighter cashing in on nostalgia. But Tate didn't just want attention, he wanted dominion. Not just over media, but over mindsets. And so, in the neon-lit chaos of the 2020 internet boom, while everyone else was riding crypto waves and chasing drop-shipping dreams, Tate was building something else, a system. He called it Hustlers University. At first glance, it looked like another online course, another shiny promise of financial freedom. A Discord server packed with modules on crypto, e-commerce, freelancing, stocks, affiliate marketing. But it wasn't the content that made it revolutionary. It was the psychology. Law 27, play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following. Tate didn't sell tactics, he sold identity. You're broke because you've been lied to. You're tired because you've been programmed. Join me, and I'll show you how to break the matrix. To a generation drowning in student debt, fake gurus, and hopeless wages, this wasn't just another hustle, it was a lifeline. His pitch wasn't polished, it was raw, loud, borderline offensive. But that was the genius. He didn't try to blend in with the online educators and gurus in blazers and lighting rigs. He pulled up shirtless in a Bugatti and told you your job was a scam. That school was a trap, that the world wanted you weak, and thousands, no hundreds of thousands of young men listened. Law 29, plan all the way to the end. Because this wasn't just a school, it was a pipeline. Each student became not just a learner, but a marketer. Tate offered a simple deal. Take his lessons and promote them on TikTok using your own accounts. In return, you earned affiliate commissions. But more importantly, you became part of the army. They flooded TikTok with edits, quotes, motivational montages, 1,000 Tates speaking from different mouths. The algorithm couldn't contain it. Suddenly, he was everywhere. Motivation pages, YouTube shorts, Instagram reels, even people who hated him couldn't escape him. A clip here, depression isn't real. Another there, if you're broke, that's your fault. Then, Bugatti, champagne, cigar, wake up, brokey. To some it was comedy, to others, poison. But to many, it was revelation. They'd never heard someone talk like this, not with filters, not with apologies, not with fake smiles and sterile TED Talk energy. Tate wasn't selling comfort, he was selling war. And Hustlers University became the recruitment center. But behind the cigar smoke and cars, there was strategy. Law 6, court attention at all costs. Law 13, when asking for help appealed to people's self-interest. Tate didn't beg for views, he turned others into his marketers. People didn't just watch him, they duplicated him. Clipped his words, reposted his face, built fan pages not out of love, but out of profit. That's not a personal brand, that's a franchise. Even when mainstream platforms tried to shut him down, it was too late. He got banned from Instagram, banned from Facebook, banned from YouTube, banned from TikTok. It didn't stop him, it boosted him. Because getting banned wasn't the end of the story, it was the next chapter. Comic twist, he got banned and trended harder. His face became forbidden fruit, his name sparked debates in classrooms, dinner tables, and political panels. Parents were alarmed, schools sent emails, news anchors called him dangerous, and he smiled. Why? Law 31, control the options, get others to play with the cards you deal. He wasn't just in the game, he was the game. Every ban became a badge of rebellion. They're afraid of me, he'd say. They can't silence the truth. And his followers ate it up. But here's the twist most missed. The students in Hustlers University weren't all chasing Lamborghinis. Many weren't even investing much money. What they really wanted was purpose. In a world where masculinity had been rebranded as toxic, where traditional roles were questioned, and where most young men felt lost, Tate offered certainty. Routines, discipline, brotherhood, a clear voice in a sea of confusion. He'd post videos about waking up early, hitting the gym, ditching porn, respecting yourself, never complaining. Between the wild quotes and internet chaos, there was something deeper. Structure. Law 1. Never outshine the master. And yet, Tate didn't just shine, he blinded. Because he knew, if you want to be followed, you must become the symbol. Not the teacher, the embodiment. He lived the lessons, jetting across the world, training, building, teaching, provoking, commanding. And the people who joined him? Many didn't even care if it was a scam, because they weren't buying products. They were buying permission to believe in themselves again. Yes, critics called Hustlers University a pyramid scheme. Yes, some lessons were basic. Yes, there were arguments about legality, morality, sustainability. But guess what? He still made millions. Because when you master the power of belief, product quality becomes secondary. Tate understood the mechanics of virality, yes, but more importantly, he understood the emotions behind it. That quiet boy in a dark room in Ohio, that dropout working night shifts in a warehouse, that gamer who just got dumped and doesn't know what to do next. They didn't need more crypto advice. They needed a brotherhood. Tate gave it to them. In Discord chats, in AMAs, in bold clips that felt like punches to the soul. In a culture where everyone is afraid to offend, he became the anti-filter. And that's why they followed. Not for money, for hope. Law 11, learn to keep people dependent on you. Tate gave his students not just lessons, but language, phrases, metaphors, mindset switches. He redefined wage slave, matrix, alpha, top G. He gave them an entire vocabulary to explain their struggle. That's how cults are built. But he didn't call it a cult, he called it a university. A place where young men didn't just learn to hustle. They learned to fight back, think different, walk different, speak like him. And while critics mocked, he built pipelines. From Hustlers University to the war room. From TikTok virality to private meetups. From chaos to control. Law 20, do not commit to anyone. Tate wasn't aligned with politics, parties, or platforms. He shifted alliances like a strategist in a chess game. Conservative, libertarian, red pill, philosopher, entertainer. He wore all hats. Because if you can't be defined, you can't be defeated. And that's the secret Tate learned early. If you don't build your own system, you'll always be a pawn in someone else's. So he built one. A digital empire, a cult-like following, a perpetual engine of belief, controversy, cash, and masculinity. And even if Hustlers University gets renamed, rebranded, or shut down tomorrow, the idea lives on. That's what made Tate dangerous. He wasn't just playing the game. He was rewriting it. The winter of 2022 cracked open with a shockwave. The winter of 2022 cracked open with a shockwave. A blurred video from Romania. Blue lights flashing, armed officers in black, and a face, calm, bald, bold, being led away in handcuffs. Andrew Tate, arrested, human trafficking, rape, organized crime. No headlines could resist it. No feed could scroll past it. The top G, dragged down to earth. For months he had danced between legend and myth. The former kickboxing champion turned internet prophet. A digital god in the age of dopamine and disbelief, untouchable, unfiltered, undefeated. And yet, here he was, in cuffs, in a cage. The internet erupted. Some cheered, some wept, most couldn't look away. Because Andrew Tate was no longer just an influencer, he had become a symbol. And now, he was being sacrificed. Law 33, discover each man's thumbscrew. Every powerful figure has a pressure point, a place where they can be broken or at least made to bend. For some, it's fear. For others, it's legacy. But for Tate, it was freedom. Not the freedom to move or tweet or travel, but the freedom to command. And that freedom was under siege. The allegations were explosive. Human trafficking, exploiting women, running a criminal enterprise. Critics called it karma, a reckoning. Justice served cold. They said he finally crossed the line from showman to suspect. But his followers, they didn't flinch. This is a setup. They're afraid of him. He told us this would happen. They're trying to silence the truth. Because here's the paradox. The more powerful Tate became, the more believable his warnings seemed. He had spent months, years predicting it. They'll come for me, they'll lie, they'll jail me, they might even kill me, but they'll never break me. So when it happened, it felt less like an arrest and more like a prophecy fulfilled. That's the power of narrative. That's the power of Law 32. Play to people's fantasies. In a world addicted to heroes and villains, Tate played both roles. He was Batman and Bane. The mentor and the menace. The self-made king and the hunted rebel. The media painted him as dangerous. His students painted him as divine. And as the Romanian authorities locked him away, the world watched. Split in half. Was he guilty? Or just too powerful to be free? The truth was tangled, the evidence unclear, rumors spun faster than facts, but that didn't matter. Because Tate wasn't just on trial in Romania, he was on trial in the court of public perception. And there, facts rarely win. Law 5, so much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. This was the ultimate test. Would his reputation break under the weight of the charges, or would it bend into something stronger? He didn't speak for weeks, just a few cryptic tweets. A video of him pacing in a cold cell. A message scribbled on the walls, "You cannot kill an idea." His silence became the story, because silence, used wisely, is not surrender, it's strategy. Law 4, always say less than necessary. And when he finally emerged, months later, he didn't look broken. He looked reborn, beard thick, head shaved, eyes darker, words heavier. He walked out of jail not like a defeated man, but like a monk returning from war. And again, the split. Critics said, "Look at him, manipulating again." Followers said, "He survived hell, now he's back stronger." Because here's the brutal truth. Law 34? Be royal in your own fashion. Act like a king to be treated like one. Tate never begged for forgiveness, never wept on camera, never gave the world the satisfaction of seeing him crushed. He played above the scandal. He tweeted philosophy, quoted the Quran, preached discipline, woke up early, did push-ups in the sun, spoke of purpose and pain and resistance. He didn't hide the prison, he weaponized it. God tested me, and I passed. That was the message. The handcuffs weren't his end, they were just another chapter in the myth. And here's where it gets even darker and smarter. Because when you play with fire, when you court chaos, when you build an empire out of provocation, there's always risk. Law 26, keep your hands clean. Tate had touched everything. Women, wealth, words, power. At a certain level, the more you dominate, the more enemies you create. And when you cross that line, when you dance too close to the sun, the world prepares to burn you. That's the hidden tax of power. Because no matter how strong you are, how rich, how loud, if the system sees you as a threat, it will test your foundation. And most men crumble. But Tate, he absorbed it. He made his fall look like a transformation. He didn't deny the darkness, he used it. He didn't run from the villain role, he owned it. And that's what makes him terrifying. Because most influencers are playing checkers. Tate, he's playing chess. He knows the rules, knows the sacrifices, knows the cost of control. That's why he said early on, "They will come for me, but I'll be ready." And when they did, he turned the moment of collapse into a launchpad. Think about that. 2022 was supposed to be the end, but instead, it became a rebrand, a darker Tate, a deeper Tate, a more dangerous Tate. Because once you've been canceled, banned, arrested, and survived, what can the world do to you anymore? Nothing. And that's the ultimate power. Law 48, assume formlessness. Tate shed his old skin. He became the message, not just the man. To some, that message is toxic. To others, it's truth. But to millions, it's undeniable. And that's why the fall wasn't the end. It was a new game, one played in darker rooms, with higher stakes and fewer rules. Because once you've been burned at the stake and lived to tell the tale, people stop seeing you as just a man. They start seeing you as myth. Lesson: you can build a kingdom of influence, but one misstep, and the world will burn it down. But if you expect the fire, if you train for it, if you become the flame, you don't fall, you ascend. When the lights fade, the podcasts end, the tweets quiet, and the headlines move on, Andrew Tate's empire doesn't rest on Bugattis, viral clips, or internet arguments. It rests on something most people ignore. Something invisible. Something ancient. Discipline. Not the glamorous kind that sells courses, but the brutal, boring, relentless version. The discipline that lives in silence and early mornings, that starts when the world sleeps, that fights cravings with cold steel. That trains in winter when no one's watching. Behind the bravado, behind the sunglasses and suits lies a man obsessed, not with power itself but with control. Control of the mind, control of the body, control of the battlefield within. Because Andrew Tate believes in this simple truth. If you cannot control yourself, you will be controlled by someone else. It starts at dawn. No alarms, just instinct. He wakes up while most people hit snooze. Cold showers, not for comfort, but for conquest. To prove to himself that the first decision of the day belongs to discipline, not dopamine. Push-ups, hundreds. Not for vanity, but for violence, preparing the body for the fight of life. No junk food, no alcohol, no excuses. This isn't fitness, it's war. And in this war, he's the general and the soldier, the trainer and the trainee, the king and the subject. Because as Law 34 from the 48 Laws of Power teaches, be royal in your own fashion, act like a king to be treated like one. Kings don't beg, kings don't drift, kings don't wait for permission. They set the tone, they raise the standard, and they master their domain, starting with themselves. In a world addicted to comfort, Tate chose discomfort as currency. Where others sleep, he trains. Where others scroll, he reads. Where others chase pleasure, he endures pain. He's not doing it for applause. He's doing it because he knows the truth. Power doesn't begin with money or status. It begins the moment you say no to your lower self. And nowhere is this war more vicious than in the modern plague few dare to name out loud: porn addiction. Tate speaks on it bluntly, not to shame, but to expose. Because in his view, every man chasing pixels on a screen is handing over the very currency of kingship: attention. Every click, every like, every scroll, every urge followed is a vote against sovereignty. You're giving your willpower to a machine that profits from your weakness, he once said. And he's not wrong. In the empire of the internet, the biggest product is you, your habits, your data, your time. Tate argues that pornography isn't just an escape, it's a weapon, a tool designed to soften men, to drain their aggression, to rob them of hunger, ambition, fight, and so, in his temple of discipline, it's banned. Not because he's a saint, but because he's a strategist. Law 29, plan all the way to the end. He's not building a moment, he's building a movement. And in that movement, the body is the foundation, the mind is the engine, and the soul is the general. No leaks, no addictions, no compromise. Because the minute you compromise on your values, you begin to fracture. And power doesn't come from perfection, it comes from alignment. That's why his morning isn't just a routine, it's a ritual. Each habit stacks onto the other like bricks in a fortress. Each decision reinforces identity, each sacrifice deepens strength. And that identity? It's built on one core belief: you are what you do, especially when no one's watching, not when you're on a podcast, not when you're flexing on Instagram, but when you're alone, tired, angry, tempted. Do you fold or do you fortify? Tate chooses fortification, and that choice, repeated millions of times over years, has created something more powerful than a brand. A persona forged in the fire of discipline, and it spills into every area. When he talks about business, it's strategy. When he talks about fitness, it's war. When he talks about women, it's frame. When he talks about masculinity, it's legacy. And that's why his appeal to young men isn't just ego fuel, it's structure. Because in a world where fathers are missing, schools are weak, and society mocks masculinity, Tate offers order, rules, rituals, responsibility. He tells them, you are not depressed, you are undisciplined, you are not unlucky, you are untrained, you are not broken, you are unfocused. Is it harsh? Yes. Is it always right? No. But is it effective? Absolutely. Because even his critics admit, he gets results. Men who once drifted through life now wake up early, they work out, they read, they build businesses, they fight back. And that, ultimately, is Tate's deeper message. Before you conquer the world, you must first conquer yourself. Law 25, recreate yourself. And so every choice, every bite of food, every hour of training, every second spent resisting temptation isn't just self-help, it's self-creation. He's crafting a character, an identity, a myth. Not because he wants to fake it, but because he believes you were born a man, but you must choose to be one. And manhood, in his philosophy, isn't genetic, it's disciplinary. Strength is earned, respect is earned, power is earned. Through grit, through grind, through governance of the self. He doesn't preach balance, he preaches extreme ownership. Because he believes the world doesn't reward moderation, it rewards mastery. And mastery begins with routine. Tate's routine is militant: wake early, train hard, eat clean, build wealth, speak truth, resist ease. There's no room for weakness, not because weakness is evil, but because weakness is exploitable. And in his world, to be exploited is to be enslaved. So the gym becomes a battlefield, the kitchen becomes a dojo, the mind becomes a fortress. And over time, these rituals shape something bigger than a lifestyle. They create a king, not a king with a throne, but with command. Over his thoughts, his actions, his influence. Because ultimately, that's what Law 34 is about. Be royal in your own fashion, not someone else's, not society's. Not your parents', yours. Define your own crown, forge your own scepter, build your own kingdom, starting with your morning routine. And that's what Tate did. He became the king of his own world, and invited others to do the same. Some called it toxic, others called it truth, but everyone felt it. Because deep down, every man knows, the greatest battle is not outside, it's inside. And that's the battle Andrew Tate wages every day, before breakfast. Lesson: to master power outside, first conquer the war inside. Your body is your first territory, your mind is your first empire, your routine is your first army. Win there, and the world becomes your chessboard. It's easy to label Andrew Tate toxic, alpha, scammer, visionary. But peel back the memes, the controversy, and the Romanian jail cell, and you find something more strategic. Something terrifyingly effective. A man who crafted power the same way a chess master constructs checkmate, moves 10 turns in advance. These weren't lucky breaks. They were rules, 10 of them, not moral codes, not motivational fluff, but strategic principles, sharpened like weapons and pulled straight from the pages of the 48 Laws of Power. Rule 1: court attention at all costs. Every empire begins with visibility. Tate never waited to be invited in, he kicked the door off the hinges. Where others were careful, he was loud. Where others apologized, he doubled down. Controversy? That was the currency. He knew that in an attention economy, silence equals poverty. So, he created sound, noise, shock. They banned me? Good, now I'm famous. It was Robert Greene's Law 6 in action. Even bad press can be good, if you control the timing. Tate didn't run from backlash, he sprinted toward it, grinning. And in doing so, he discovered the secret most influencers never learn. When people love you or hate you, they share you. Rule 2: create a persona, then live it. Tate didn't just market himself, he mythologized himself. I'm a top G, I'm the man every man wants to be. These weren't just slogans, they were his armor, his character. And like Greene's Law 25, recreate yourself, he became a walking symbol. In a world of soft edges and moral vagueness, he chose sharp lines. Black or white, masculine or weak, king or peasant. Whether you loved or loathed him, you knew exactly what he stood for. And that clarity is what made him viral. The world didn't just follow Tate, it debated him, it couldn't ignore him. Rule 3: master your emotions. He's been punched in the face hundreds of times, lost money, been arrested, called every insult in the book. But rarely does Tate show panic. That's not an accident. It's Law 33, discover each man's thumbscrew. But before you find others' weaknesses, you must master your own. Tate practiced emotional discipline like it was a martial art. Anger, used as fuel. Sadness, buried under cold showers and deadlifts. Public pressure, transformed into talking points. He taught his followers that power isn't just being loud, it's staying calm while others explode. A lesson most people never learn. Rule 4: speak in absolutes, not maybes. I don't believe in depression. Every man must be a fighter. If you're broke, it's your fault. No nuance, no hedging, just thunder. This isn't truth, it's strategy. Greene's Law 37, create compelling spectacles. Absolutes attract, maybes get scrolled past. Tate understood that the internet doesn't reward accuracy, it rewards certainty. So he gave people exactly that. Not facts, but frames. Even when he was wrong, he was powerful. Because people don't remember the argument, they remember who shouted louder. And in the war for influence, volume wins battles. Rule 5: control the narrative even when you lose. He got banned from Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Most influencers would fade. Tate grew stronger. How? Because he controlled his story. They're silencing me because I speak truth. They fear masculine energy. I'm fighting the matrix. This is Law 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. He didn't let his haters write his downfall. He rewrote it before they could. When people said he was canceled, he said, I'm uncancelable. And when people doubted him, he doubled down. Every L became a lesson. Every scandal became a saga. Every ban became a badge. Rule 6: dominate physically, speak mentally. His body was the billboard. Muscles, suits, Bugattis, cigar smoke, everything curated. But behind that was a quieter game. Words, strategy, provocation. This was Greene's Law 17, keep others in suspended terror, cultivate an air of unpredictability. Tate wasn't just fit, he was formidable. Every post reminded you he could destroy you in a ring and debate you in a room. It wasn't just physical power. It was symbolic. He turned his body into a throne and ruled from it. Rule 7: Own controversy. Don't hide from it. Most people flinch when the spotlight burns. Tate leaned in. Allegations? He answered them on livestream. Hate comments? He pinned them. Criticism? He used it to sell courses. This was Law 27. Play on people's need to believe in something. And people believe in the unapologetic, in the defiant. Tate made himself a symbol, not of morality, but of resistance. He taught his fans, if you're going to be hated for who you are, not who you pretended to be. Rule 8. Build armies, followers repost for him. Here's the genius play. Tate didn't need to post, his followers did it for him. Hustlers University students clipped his speeches, re-uploaded his content, filled TikTok with Tateisms. Some did it for money, others did it for faith. This was Law 26, keep your hands clean. While he sat back, others spread his message, and in doing so, they made him impossible to erase. Banning Tate became like deleting water. He built digital warriors, 1,000 mini accounts chanting the same creed. He didn't just go viral, he franchised virality. Rule 9. Monetize belief systems. Most influencers sell products. Tate sold a worldview. That's more dangerous and more profitable. This ties to Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest. He didn't say, buy my course. He said, join the resistance. Escape the matrix. Become the man you were born to be. That's not marketing. That's missionary work. His followers weren't customers. They were disciples, because he didn't sell features. He sold transformation. And whether you think it's fake or not, that's what converts. Rule 10. Be unapologetically strategic. Perhaps the most important rule of all, Tate never hid that he was playing the game. In fact, he bragged about it. He told people he engineered virality, that he designed controversy, that he studied the algorithm like a blueprint. It wasn't authenticity, it was precision. And that's Law 3, conceal your intentions. Except Tate flipped it. He revealed just enough to make you think you were in on it, while still pulling every string. His genius wasn't raw power, it was the illusion of chaos under complete control. Key lessons, but here's the twist. These rules? They're powerful, but they're not prescriptions, they're observations, reflections of how power works in the shadows. And power without wisdom? That's how empires fall. Green's book wasn't a guide for saints, it was a mirror for strategists. And Tate? He used that mirror to build an empire of influence. But even he knows, one wrong move and the whole castle crumbles. The real question is, what can you learn from Tate without becoming him? You can speak boldly but with purpose. You can build influence without manipulation. You can master strategy without losing your soul. Because in the end, the greatest power isn't what you take from the world. It's what you choose to leave behind. Power isn't about going viral. It's not about fast cars or viral quotes echoing through TikTok. It's about awareness, discipline. A dangerous kind of clarity in a world built on distraction. And while Andrew Tate became the symbol, this story was never about him. It was always about you. Because you don't need a Bugatti to feel trapped. You don't need 10 million followers to crave influence. The war you're fighting isn't trending on Twitter. It's happening silently, inside your own mind. And if there's one truth that cuts through the noise, it's this. If you don't take control of your own life, someone else will. Tate didn't wait for permission. He didn't ask to be liked. He engineered attention, leveraged emotion, turned outrage into empire. But love him or hate him, you watched. The world watched. Because he tapped into a raw, uncomfortable truth. People want to be led, but they're terrified of leading themselves. So maybe that's your challenge. Not to copy him, not to agree with him, but to study him, to dissect the strategies and discard the poison, to take what serves you and leave what doesn't. That's the real lesson of the 48 Laws of Power. Not to become a tyrant, but to become aware. Not to manipulate others, but to master yourself. Not to perform power, but to embody it, quietly, daily, without applause. Every week on Innovative Book Philosophy, we decode the minds of icons, legends who didn't just play the game, they changed it. From Cristiano Ronaldo's obsession with self-improvement, to Kobe Bryant's mental warfare on the court, to the tech billionaires quietly rewriting the rules of modern society. If you're tired of surface-level advice, tired of recycled motivation, and ready to understand why power works the way it does, subscribe right now. Not because it's trendy, but because you're building something bigger than trends, a mindset, a legacy, a life by design, not default. And if this chapter gripped you, just wait until the next one. Up next, The Richest Man in Babylon. Ancient secrets, timeless wealth-building strategies, simple rules that built empires long before Instagram existed and still work today. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need a crown to think like a king. You just need a system and the discipline to follow it. The screen fades to black, a heartbeat drum thunders softly, then a single quote appears in bold electric silence. They want to control you, so control yourself first. Andrew Tate. Your move.